start. Yeah. Oh, we're live. Yep. Okay. Sorry. No, I yeah. Okay. And then I didn't. Okay. Good morning. This is Senate Natural Resources and Energy, and it is Wednesday, March 11th, in the final week before crossover. And we are taking up S325 again. We hear from some folks and then have some committee discussion about what we want to do. And so we are joined this morning by Mary White from the Vermont Farm Bureau. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. All. I am Mary White. I am the current president of the Vermont Farm Bureau, and we sincerely appreciate your time. We know the hectic atmosphere this week can create, so we are all here for a greater cause, and we really appreciate the work you do. So today I'm here on behalf of Vermont Farm Bureau members from across our state who are sharing their stories of the adverse impact that Act 181 may have on their livelihoods and businesses. Vermont Farm Bureau, for those of you that don't know us, we are the largest and oldest association of agriculture producers, and we are a nonprofit. Our policies and priorities are set by our grassroots, which values every member's voice and input, which makes us such an integral part of shaping public policy. We have members across the state in all 14 counties. Our members range from rural Vermonters to homesteaders, generational farmers, and those producing foods for local markets. Our rural Vermonters are hardworking families who value environmental stewardship. They live with the land, not on it. Our agriculture and rural heritage is who we are, and for many of us, it's all we are. Vermont is unique, as we all know. No two farms are alike. Every family has their own journey, and every piece of land has its own story. Vermont agriculture is a fundamental part of our state's economy, landscape, and way of life. While the current agriculture exemption in Act 250 remains, many parts of Vermont agriculture will be touched with these limitations as proposed in Act 181. Our major concerns, as presented, are farmers retiring, farmers diversifying, and farms starting new. We are also concerned with the overall economic viability of our rural economies and rural communities that greatly support the ability for us to farm in these communities. Vermont farmers are business owners and employers. We absolutely understand the need for housing directly, as many of us provide on-farm housing and rely on our local workforce. Over the last 10 years in particular, we have seen this workforce disappear. We have seen less youthful involvement when it comes to farm opportunities for employment on the farm. Many farmers, from produce farmers to even sugar makers now, are turning to the H-2A visa program for temporary ag housing and ag labor that requires housing. It is not affordable or practical for farmers to transport these employees from towns and home or condos in Montpelier. We must reserve the right for the farmers to be able to construct housing for their employees and to grow our rural communities to support our farms. The average age of a Vermont farmer is just shy of 58 years old. Vermont preaches to encourage younger generations to stay or return to the farm, but in turn seems to be making it harder to do so. For many farmers, everything they have goes back into their land. It is their retirement, their largest asset, as is the right to choose how they transition that land to the next generation. Jim from Wisconsin shares his story. At 80 years old, Jim has given the state a lifetime of stewardship and service to others. He has raised sheep, fed neighbors, chaired select board, and fostered children and given them a home. The vision for his property is to leave it better than he found it for his children, so they too may build a home of their own, be good stewards of the land, and leave it on to the next generation. Our wealth is in our land, he says. The land is remote, and I fear that future use will be threatened by not being able to use the lands that are well over 800 feet from Route 25. There are many stories like Jim throughout rural Vermont. Who will reimburse landowners or their families for the regulatory loss of assets and development rights for market value? A farm appraisal calculates the best use of our property. Who will back the farmer's business when the bank depreciates their largest borrowing asset due to this regulatory change? These are stories of someone's livelihood, not just a piece of land. Vermont has been a leader in the nationwide development of agritourism. We encourage farmers to diversify, to be open to the public, to offer farm stays, on-farm dinners, and local events. A great thing passed by the Vermont legislature just in 2021 was the Agritourism Limited Liability Law. This really opened the door for Vermont farmers to feel comfortable and able to embrace a lot of these events. Now, just 5 years later, we're telling farmers that the potential growth in this market might be limited to their geographic location and will most likely trigger an Act 250 review. I think we can all agree that agritourism must start with a farm, not just a venue, but we must allow our farmers to be able to diversify in this area, to share the Vermont experience with others, so they may too come back and start a small farm or put down roots here in rural Vermont. We must support a dairy farmer with rising input costs and fluctuating milk market, who has a business plan to diversify for additional income through a farm stay. These are things that fall through the cracks with Act 181. Neil Ryan is a third-generation Vermonter who owns 200 acres in Crenton Orange. He and his wife Fawn raise Scottish Highland beef cattle, as Neil's grandparents did in Foxborough. The Ryans cannot make a living from beef cattle alone. Many other Vermonters feel the struggle as input costs rise, so they work full-time jobs off the farm or they diversify. The Ryans rely on agritourism as part of the farm operation, including farm stays, professional development, and workshops. Neil says, "Our farm is a place of beauty and meaning that people want to be a part of. This land slated for tier 2 and tier 3 restrictions was Governor Dean C. Davis' boyhood farm. They see static categories of forest blocks and habitat connectors drawn on screens. I see 200 years of human stewardship, creating the biomass mosaic fields of farm and forest that defines Vermont. The Ryans' necessary diversification of their business in agritourism helps sustain their way of life. They have nurtured life back into a historic homestead that was long forgotten while contributing to our local food supply. Isn't that the Vermont we want to support, not where we want to impose limitations?" Michelle's story as a new Vermonter who moved to Vermont to build a home and has developed a farm business that is still evolving. She includes maple sap, an orchard, and is growing agritourism. Her dream of growing her agritourism would include farm stays, and she worries this will be gone as her proposal is proposed for tier 3 mapping and become unaffordable. She worries that this will burden her ability to continue her business and negatively impact the future value of her property she is greatly invested in. Our local food movement is growing right from these tier 2 and tier 3 areas. Our maple syrup industry is thriving right in these forest blocks and habitat connectors. And a lot of agriculture, but some agriculture does happen above 2,500 feet. In response to the Food Security Act and declining dairy farm numbers, the Vermont legislature relaunched an act relating to agriculture development. This led to the most recent roadmap to 2032 food security in Vermont. This calls for Vermont to increase sustainable economic development, create jobs in Vermont's food and farm sectors, while providing healthy access to food for all Vermonters. This movement is happening across rural Vermont, producing food for our local communities and markets. The very implications as presented in Act 181 will hinder growth, as many of these stories start with a home. Their acronyms from Cabot share their story. Caitlin and Ian grew up in the hills of Cabot and watched many of their peers move out of state. They felt a deep connection to the land and were able to purchase their dream 150-acre property in their hometown. They built a home much further away than 800 feet from any town road, lived minimally off the land as they started a sugaring operation and a young family. Their business has grown to over 18,000 taps, and they sell award-winning maple products across the country. Their land provides the opportunity for them to both work full-time, along with a homestead that they someday hope to share with their 3 young children who are 5th-generation Vermonters. This dream and business started with a home, another story that would not have been possible with the new proposed restrictions. In rural Vermont, we measure land in acres, not feet. Take a drive, I know many of you have. You will see houses built well away from the road. The road rule exemption for farming and forestry is absolutely necessary, but the road rule itself will cripple our rural communities and hinder growth where we need it to flourish. Hannah from Berg expresses extreme concern within her community, as well as small towns like Newark, Granby, Emerald, Madstone, Glastonbury, and dozens of others across the state that will not meet the tier 1A or tier 1B requirements. She says the executive is supposed to help rural communities and is structurally inaccessible to the rural communities that need it the most. And it's not just the smallest of the remote towns that fall through this gap. For a growing, thriving, economically active community that people are moving to, does not yet have municipal water or sewer. Burke would assume the full weight of permitting systems and discourage exactly the kind of organic community growth that it represents. Rural Vermonters are not carving the landscape for housing developments. We're using common sense and environmental stewardship with the lay of the landscape to make sound decisions for building. Act 250 would propose increased costs for our rural landowners who are just trying to get by. The criteria conditions are not an ethical review for the vast majority of individual landowner projects. This process will deter landowners from applying or purchasing property altogether, leading to concerns of decreased value and privately owned land and sale competition. Rural Vermonters are speaking up, and we have received testimony from many members, which we have provided, just a sample. We have many more, and non-members are reaching out as well. They have spoken. They are fearful and they will leave because of affordability. Young families will leave, rural businesses will leave. When we hear generational Vermonters who have committed everything they have to the family farm tell us, if it wasn't for this farm, we still wouldn't be here. That is when we know we are not doing our job. They're not leaving because of the weather or market conditions. They're leaving because the implications of restrictions on their way of life this act implies. The purpose and goals as outlined for agriculture in Act 181 read to encourage strategies to protect long-term viability of agriculture and forest lands while maintaining low overall density. To encourage the manufacturing and marketing of value-added agriculture products and forest products. To encourage the use of locally grown food products. Vermonters and rural landowners are accomplishing these goals independently with the trust of their communities. If our goal is truly of environmental concern, we must trust the farmers who work this land to leave it better for the next generation as the generation before. We must listen to the people who work the land, those who inherit the economic outcomes of this act to accomplish the true goals of strengthening our agriculture and forestry industries. We have seen firsthand the confusion and frustration and unclear proceedings this act has caused in our rural communities. Our local planning commissions are being asked questions from landowners they cannot answer because the answers do not yet exist. We recognize the land use towards efforts, but they can only work within the legislation provided. We must know the direct and indirect implications of this act that will have on our rural communities before commencing the effective date. If anything, we need more time. We need more time to understand the full economic impact of rural Vermont in our agriculture and forestry sectors. We need more time to hear from our rural landowners and farmers and come up with solutions that will allow them to continue to grow and support a viable Vermont. We support and encourage a full act extension of the implementation of this act until December 2027 or further. In addition, we would request an economic impact study on rural Vermont, continued engagement with rural landowners, and a landowner survey they conducted. In closing, less prospective growth in rural areas will lessen our community's representation and promote voice of concentrated growth in larger cities and towns. This is when we will lose the voice of Vermont agriculture when we prioritize larger developments over the cancer of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those stories and for being here. I think that it's so important, and I'm really grateful to have this perspective that you're bringing, and appreciating the your ask for more time. That's baked into the bill, which is great. I'm also appreciating your ask about an economic impact study. I think that's something we can talk about. And in the meanwhile, I mean, I just want to at least express that, you know, the vision that I have for Vermont is a place that can feed itself. And, you know, that doesn't happen if we don't have our own farms. And so anyway, we've had this conversation, but I just want to say it out loud that I'm looking forward to like working together over the summer, over the next year to continue to find solutions. And that, especially if we bump things out, that will give us the time to continue to work together, so.
So we also have visions of increasing voice, pulling more coalitions together of farm advocacy groups and really grasping the big picture of how this would impact agriculture and forestry, because it is such a vital part of our state. It touches everything we do, every committee in this room, in this building, so.
That's good. Thanks for your testimony. First of all, the more time, it sounds like that is what our plan is in the bill to do it. I'm curious, and this is maybe just me not understanding, but I mean, it sounds like the concerns, the specific concerns you have are about the road rule and how it would impact rural communities. And then the Act 250 regulation, most of the area that I think you're talking about would be tier 2. And I think that tier 2, at least my understanding, still everybody in this room has heard me struggle to understand all of this, but is it basically status quo. There's not like new things imposed on it. Are you, and there are like exemptions for forestry and agriculture, so yeah, so is it really just a road rule that's the problem, or is there?
A huge problem, and I think for us, it's hard to gauge what the potential tier 3 picture looks like, because it is relied on the road rule at this point. So when it's really a hard picture to gauge when we're relying on the road rule as part of tier 3, but it sounds, again, this is all till we see the actual mapping, it's hard to gauge, so the tier 3 might be larger if we take away the road rule, we just don't know that answer. So as far as tier 2 goes, we are concerned with especially the appraisal value for the best use. If that road rule is in effect for those tier 2 farmers, that will have an impact on them. If their best use for an appraisal value is development, that will negatively impact the value of their land. And if they have an old logging road or an old agriculture road and their child decides that that's where they want to build their house, the second that road transfers, that would trigger a review as well. The second you use that road for something else.
But if it's an existing road, then
If it transfers the use from agriculture to housing.
even if it's an existing road, correct? Okay, and so in the areas of the state where the maps have been presented, because there are a few counties that have already presented their maps to the land use review board, are you hearing fewer concerns because people now see the maps, or more concerns because they see the maps? Because I understand that not knowing is hard for everybody.
And I think getting those maps to the landowners is crucial. I think more engagement needs to happen in that areas, because we do not have anyone coming into us. We did have one, she was on for planning commission, and she came to us after maps in place. And her parcel, is still designated for tier 3. It's one of the stories I shared, where she's just building a new farm. And she's actively involved with the planning commission, and she's seen her maps, so she's still concerned that she's falling in that tier 3 area.
Okay. So it's basically just the unknown of what it all means.
The unknown, yes, and again, it's okay, so if we take away, if we take some parcel out, how does it change? Yeah, exactly, how does it impact otherwise? The road rule is a huge piece, especially that's our main concern, I think, for our startup farms. For our new farms, is they will automatically trigger. Because that's starting with a home, they don't have a business structure yet, that's something that they're building towards, and we're seeing so much growth in that area. And how do we capture that? How do we make it affordable for them to do that, to continue to build homesteads and viable businesses that will grow our food security?
And my understanding, and again, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but the road rule, the way it works is that it doesn't prohibit you from building, you just have to get a permit to say that it's correct and follow the permit.
Which is, again, some of these, they're trying to limit it off the land, in Act 250, there will be a deterrent for them. They will be more incentivized to go buy land in New Hampshire rather than start a farm here.
I don't understand, like because.
They see it as a deterrent from affordability, from a process standpoint, can be a lengthy review, sometimes Act 250 is great, and sometimes it's not a headache, and it can be done relatively quickly. But this is where, you know, education for our landowners is gonna come into play, is what does the process look like for that single family home? Is it a full Act 250 review? Is it something more affordable? Is it something that we can work with? Because this is not a one size fits all. As we said, Vermont is unique, our farms are unique, no story is the same. So how do we make it so we can still entice these people to come here, have it be affordable and have it be attractive for them that they want to move their family here, get their kids in our schools and contribute to our food economy.
Great, thank you. Really, oh, did you have a?
Just a quick one.
Yeah,
So,
sure, okay.
thank you for your testimony. I can relate to some of the stories that you told about some experiences. I think, you know, and you mentioned the depreciation of the value of the property that's in tier 3, and if the road rule went into effect. Is that really a significant consideration? Because I know I haven't actually thought of it in that light. Is that the value of my property is now diminished? Is somebody going to compensate me for that? You think
The
that?
farmers, we are hearing a lot of concerns in that, and I think a lot of it might be towards that unknown, but when an appraisal does happen on a farm, development is absolutely looked at. And if you actually conserve your farm and sell your development rights, that appraisal retracts that value because you're being compensated for it. So are we inadvertently doing that, and taking that value from that farmer? And we obviously wouldn't be in full conservation by any means, but there is some value there, and it is considered in a bank appraisal. So something to think about.
Great.
Great. Thank you so much, to be continued, and appreciate your testimony, thank you. Okay, so,
I apologize for being late, I thought we were starting at 9.
oh, and that is.
I apologize for listening to that.
I apologize, this being the last week, I think we gotta start at 9 unfortunately. Okay, so we're gonna move on to, I think we're gonna go just in the order that folks are listed, so, we're gonna move to Mr. Coster, who is here. I know you have very brief things to say.
Sure, I'll try to be that.
I mean, you don't have to be brief, it's all good.
Great, so good morning for the record, my name is Billy Coster, I'm the Director of Planning and Policy for the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources. And I'm here just to follow up on some of the Land Use Review Board's testimony from yesterday. Act 181 requires municipalities to meet 9 requirements to obtain Tier 1A designation from the Land Use Review Board. The idea there was that, as you all know, Tier 1 areas are places where Act 250 jurisdiction will not exist once designated. So the Act wanted to ensure that municipalities had sufficient capacity, plans, programs, and bylaws in place in those areas to not entirely replicate Act 250, but make sure that the important stuff that Act 250 did was being covered by the municipal land use review process. That includes, from our agency's perspective, impacts in floodplains, river corridors, consideration of public drinking water and wastewater systems, and impacts to significant natural communities where threatened and endangered species. We generally support this approach, and we've been working with Alert to develop guidance on how towns who are seeking Tier 1A navigate that process. We've also met with a couple of municipalities who are seeking Tier 1A to kind of talk with them about what bylaws and other systems they need in place to accomplish that. Through that process, we've identified one small aspect of those requirements that we feel that may not be feasible for municipalities to implement. Frankly, doesn't seem consistent with the overall intent of Act 181. And I'm going to hand out, I've got some handouts here. This is what the LURB used yesterday.
Yeah.
So if folks have it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but if
I'll
not.
take another one though.
Great.
Alright,
So,
okay, right.
Discussing.
Thinking about mine, yes.
You want, we need another.
Oh, I've got it, okay. It may need-
I have it.
So for those of you who have that,
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to turn to page 12, it's the second to last page. And at the very bottom, I circled it for those who read a new copy. There is a proposed change to section 8, 10 VSA 6034. And if you look very closely on line, I guess what would be 19, it strikes the word rare. So that's the only change we're proposing. That requirement would still require towns to identify and plan for the maintenance of significant natural communities, threatened and endangered species, but would no longer have the requirement that they address rare species. And I'll explain why we support that proposal, but first I want to say in supporting this change, you know, our agency certainly acknowledges the wisdom of protecting species of plants and animals that are known to be rare across the state, as a strategy to avoid having them become threatened and listed, which is a more significant level of decline. You know, the agency is certainly mindful of the ongoing biodiversity crisis and generally supports strategies for accommodating thoughtful development that also protects the interest in these vulnerable species. But we also believe that those concerns need to be taken in balance and consideration of fairness, good governance, and the understanding of what proposed requirements was simply not feasible to. So in this instance, we support the LURB's markup, first and foremost, because Act 250 does not currently regulate rare species. So what Act 181 does is create a new regulatory standard for residential and commercial development that will only exist in Tier 1A areas, which is the place where Act 181 is really trying to encourage growth. So there seems to be just a general disconnect with the intent of Tier 1A and this new standard that doesn't exist elsewhere in the state and doesn't currently exist in Act 250. Second, in talking with the municipalities, it seems to create an almost untenable in some instances burden on towns to figure out how to do this. To figure out how to identify and plan for the needs of these species. They're an order of magnitude greater than threatened and endangered species. Our natural heritage database has about 110 threatened species, 110 endangered species, and it has over 1,100 rare species. So there's 10 times more likelihood that these species may be present in these areas than the others. We also lack a lot of species specific guidance for rare species on how to avoid and protect them. We have a lot of that information and guidance for threatened and endangered species, so we're able to help towns in developing bylaws or review processes to avoid impacts and maintain threatened and endangered species. We just don't have the same tools for rare species. So we're asking towns to provide the same level of protection to something that has 10 times the likelihood of being present without the same level of support that's been offered them. So we absolutely support maintaining requirements to address significant natural communities, CNE species, but the rare species is one that we thought was going to be problematic. In closing, I'll say this doesn't mean we're going to ignore these altogether. We will have these relationships, dialogues with municipalities seeking Tier 1A. They will be talking to us about the balance of these requirements. And in those conversations, if we're aware of rare species in these areas, we'll share that information, we'll share strategies to protect and avoid them, and encourage towns to kind of work proactively to do so. But removing the statutory requirement that they do so seemed appropriate for this section. So that's all I have for you.
Thank you. I just want to follow up. So the surrounding language in that document, so because what comes after it is threatened and endangered species. And as I understand it, TNE, right? Threatened and endangered is kind of a term of art. And there's guidance on that, as you mentioned.
They're statutorily defined. And there's a whole list that defines what they are.
Okay, so the other question, so the words just before that, significant natural communities. That is that also, but I feel like that's a tier 3 thing, but I'm curious, can you speak to significant natural communities?
Sure. So in Vermont, well, first of all, a natural community is an assemblage of plants and other living organisms and bedrock and soils that constitute a community. So northern hardwood forests, stagnant swamps, recognizable areas on the landscape. In Vermont, through our Fish and Wildlife Department, we've cataloged all the natural communities and we've ranked them on a scale of significance. So we do again have a list of significant natural communities. And The consideration of those does directly tie back to Act 250's criteria related to rare and irreplaceable natural communities. So we saw that there was kind of a parallel between protections in Tier 1A and protections in Act 250, which didn't exist for rare.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes,
So in Act 250 right now, rare, the time it comes up, it's rare, it's natural areas.
Correct. Yeah, the way the criteria actually only speaks to endangered species, but then the definition of endangered points back to our statute, which includes threatened, so that's what actually that was.
okay. Great,
Happy to follow up with anyone.
thank you, appreciate it. Right, we're gonna move to Ms. Gallagher from PRC, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair, and to the committee for having us back. My name is Katie Gallagher. I work with the Vermont Natural Resources Council as our Sustainable Communities Program Director. As you know, the NRC has a long history advocating for sustainable land use planning and development. I want to speak today to our general support for the bill and a couple of considerations moving forward. I have written testimony that is submitted early this morning, so apologies that was delayed, but I'll just keep on the key points to keep this brief. I'll say just in general, this is a really monumental law, so I think that it's very sensible that there's going to be fixes and clarifications that need to be made as we work through the process and figure out, how it's actually working on the ground. And so we've been really appreciative of the kind of solutions oriented collaboration that has come up from stakeholders and has continued to shape these conversations within this committee. So thank you for that. So we are supporting generally the extensions of several timelines to give us additional time for outreach and engagement. And then as I noticed, some technical corrections. So on extending the dates both for the road rule tier 3 and criterion 8C, I think this will help again to ensure sufficient time for technical refinement, as well as extending the interim housing exemptions. As you think about the extension of the interim housing extensions, and I know Senator Bondros, you had some questions around 2030, the right time. I just wanted to refer back to the conversations that we had in the development of Act 181. My recollection is that we kind of set these initial, you also set these initial sunsets on the interim exemptions with the intent of kind of checking back and seeing how things were working, particularly their impact on smaller towns that generally rely on Act 250. So just wanted to pose that if the committee chooses to extend the sunset to 2030, a report to the legislature and the interim might be a helpful way to identify any potential impacts on smaller towns and identify measures to mitigate those impacts. Moving down to the provisions related to Tier 1A. So there's the clarifying the permit enforcement for Tier 1A areas. We think those changes make sense. It would not take away from the goal of Act 181. The section 8 on the Tier 1 area guidelines update. We think that because you have the language in there related to the permit enforcement clarification, that the that update to the guidelines might not be necessary.
Can I pause you for a
Yes.
second? Is because you're referencing some specific parts, you're not looking at it specifically, like right now? I'm just wondering, I would love to follow along.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm jumping around.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Draft 2.2.
Yes, on page 11,
Okay,
section
thank you.
8.
Yesterday.
Page 11, okay.
So this is section 8, Tier 1A area guidelines. As I think the LERB testified yesterday, they have been kind of working through the Tier 1 guidelines. I think that what we heard in stakeholder testimony was that there was this concern from towns about the permit enforcement specifically in terms of that being kind of a big question mark as to whether towns were going to choose to become a tier 1A area if they were eligible for that. So don't have a strong opinion if you want to keep in this section 8 update. We just felt like it, because there seems to be still kind of questions about what we're trying to achieve here, you might have already achieved the purpose in the other language related to the permit enforcement. That's.
I think
Okay. Feel free to ask questions.
So this basically, you don't think it's necessary, correct?
Okay. Section 8.
Section. Correct. So then the, let's see what section, section 10 going down to page 12 is the tier 1B appeals report. We think this study would be really helpful, makes a lot of sense, since the 2025 Board of Appeals report did not really get into the challenges specific to municipal zoning permits for housing. A consideration that we are proposing, since the LURB has voiced concerns about them being the appropriate entity to lead the report. A legislative study committee could be an effective approach to help analyze the issue and develop policy recommendations. I also note that we've seen from several stakeholders some more potential specifics that could be added in to make that report even more pointed as to what we want to address. Then we have a couple other proposed changes to add into the bill. I believe you've heard most of these already from various people who have testified already. The first would be to streamline the process for towns interested in opting into tier 1B so that they can do that outside of the full regional plan review process. So it's really important to ensure that they can opt in when they are ready, so that they both aren't rushed at the forefront, and we give them time to do the necessary planning and regulatory work that they need to do. Speaking as someone who's on like year 7 of updating their bylaws, adding the smart grid principles back to the statute, as was noted, they were inadvertently struck. This is a really important change. They are foundational to our planning framework. They really need to be back in there. Third, extending the expiration dates for regional plans that are expiring in 2026 to the end of the year, to just kind of give reasonable breathing room. And then finally, similarly to the provision that you have in related to allowing the land use review board to limit the Act 250 criteria applied to projects that are triggered under tier 3. We think it would make sense to also provide that same authority for the road rule. Similar kind of idea with the road rule, if projects weren't being triggered except for the road rule or except for tier 3, they might not need to have the full slate of Act 250 criteria applied to evaluate their impact on the specific natural resources that the road rule is trying to address. So
Pause there,
Yeah.
because we have talked about that idea. And where I believe like where that idea lives right now is just in relation to tier 3 and does not. We don't have language yet about, and I don't know that it's in Baptist recommendations, and I don't think it's in the LURB's recommendations to have that same limitation on the road rule. So anyway, just flagging that I would value that. Yeah,
We have a discussion. Website.
we do.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I guess what I'm thinking about is like specific language to make that happen. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, in relation to this conversation, we had a confusing conversation about it yesterday related to the tier 3 and how to limit that. That's whether to. It was actually about the word whether.
Yeah.
And I think where we ended up, but we don't have language yet, is that they should report back to us about how they envision doing this for tier 3, so we could also add to that the.
Yes,
I think.
and I think we've agreed that more specific language than whether.
Yes, yeah.
We are happy to provide recommended language. I think on our team, I'll just say there's also kind of a disagreement as to whether a report back is necessary, or if the learner already has the authority for rulemaking to make both of these changes, but we're happy to.
I think our legislative council attorney thinks that they can't do it without an actual statutory change, so. They can't just write a rule to say we're not gonna do all of the criteria, so they have to come back to us and tell us how they would like to do it, and then we could make the changes to statute, or how they would recommend it.
One question for you, if, it's, we're running out of time, how, because, if you would like to offer language about that, just, I would say, the sooner the better.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, thank you, carry on.
That is all of our recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, this is not necessarily a question for you specifically, but I think maybe for Mr. Mietrich, maybe for our legislative council, in the language that Mr. Mietrich, that you all had provided about tier 1B, I'm thinking specifically about your recommendation to allow municipalities to opt into tier 1B, whatever makes sense for them. I know in your language, you had a process, a new process that would apply to tier 1B areas. But I was unclear as to whether that language, because that was a new process for amendments. I guess it is also to the status of the request. So your sense is that covers that asks that they can request anytime.
Yes, Catherine Dimitruk, Northwest Regional Planning Commission. Yes, our language does address that tier 1B request. The LURB did provide you with a markup to our suggestions that work better for their process, and we support that version of it. Great.
Okay, super, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Gale? I'll grab this. Okay, great, thank you so much. Okay, so we are going to move to Mr. Dubsky. Welcome. Sort of feel like I need to just reset my brain for a second. We had a draft, and we did not get to finish walking through it with you the other day. So I think that is our first priority, is to continue to walk through version 2.2. And then I think the thing that is in order is to continue to have a committee discussion on how we as a group want to move forward with some of these suggestions. We have until 10:30. It's great.
I think you have longer than that now.
Amazing.
But you have other witnesses.
We do. Yeah. And just to flag the committee, we have one other review that we need to do of a different bill that's in economic development. So that is also going to be with Ellen. So that's sort of the lay of the land for the next 45 minutes. So you know. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to you to continue to walk through 2.2.
Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. So yesterday I was here on S325 draft 2.2. You were discussing at the bottom of page 7 into page 8, which was about the tier 3 rulemaking process. I And then I ran to another committee, so there isn't that much else left in here, but did you wanna start with the tier three rulemaking, or do you want to move on?
Well, so I think it would be useful, because we didn't really get to talk about the top of page 8.
Yeah,
Right, I think if there's anything more that you want to add that'd be useful, because I would also. This is a slightly different topic, but I would add that I am interested in including. In this, the authority for. The land use review board to. Or eventually. Be able to apply not all of Act 250 to the road rule, just the parts that make sense or apply. But maybe that can be baked into what we're asking for at the top of page 8. I'm curious if you think it should be there or elsewhere, or if you have any other comments about top B.
I don't, I would go pull the rest of the tier three rulemaking language, but. And see what else it said, I don't have thought actually.
That's okay, right? But just let's flag that, like, we wanna do that.
Yeah.
Also. Okay,
The top of page 8, the 6086 is what is that?
It's activity criteria.
Okay.
so. Just to clarify, so the idea is that we would be asking. The land use review board to come back to us with recommendations on how, for statutory changes, so that they could apply less than the whole slate of Act 250 criteria.
I think that's what you are asking for, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not part of the rules section, because they can't just make rules about it, because it might conflict with statute.
So, let me take a step back, cause I guess I'm also happy to hear to learn all the things that they already have this authority, so my understanding is. The land use review board does have broad rulemaking authority under the existing rulemaking statute in Act 250. And when you amended the Act 250 jurisdictional triggers in Act 181, the language that you included itself is a little bit broad. But in no, and I'll read it to you, but in no other places have you given them authority to use less criteria, so I think. There is a little bit of an ambiguity in the tier 3 jurisdictional trigger. That I think is a little bit ambiguous of whether or not it actually. Gives them that authority, it currently has that they, I'm not finding it, the authority is that they have, any development within tier 3. As defined by the rules of the board trigger the need for a permit. And so it does say as defined in the rules, and so that does give them some leeway because you gave that very little. Detail in the statute regarding tier 3. I'm not 100% confident that that gives them. Reduced criteria authority. Perhaps they have an argument there because they do generally have broad authority, that's why I raised this. So. I'm also happy to hear what their lawyers say, but that's why I'm under the impression that they do need a statutory change.
Now become alerts.
Correct, okay,
But I do think they said that they had.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that they said that they agreed with
Okay.
it, and that they were like. We wouldn't know which ones you want us to apply or not apply, and so that they need to come back and they need to think about it. And do some work and come back, that was my takeaway from their testimony.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm happy to do that. I think that's probably the cleanest thing to do. I do see a potential other path because we have left that rulemaking sort of vague, and we could say. Your rulemaking authority is to apply less than. All of the Act 250 criteria as you see fit, but if that might be. If the possibility that might be problematic, the statutory change I think is the better option, so. And then if we were to do this also, well, actually, before we move on, does that sound okay to the committee? To do it, yes, go,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
There's a, thinking about this, there's, if we do it in statute, then it kind of also, then it's their opinion, we get by rule, or it doesn't. Or I guess I'm wondering whether better off than let, by rule, we find it out to do it. Because once we lock in, it's a little, we're locking in specifics statutorily, theoretically, they still have the authority to then do a company rulemaking or adjust. Or so there's always a little danger if you put in, you get specifics in statute when we actually want to give them rules on stability and ability to think and rethink. So I'm just wondering whether we'd be better off trying to fix it now, give them the authority. But I'm just interested in your response to that thing. Maybe I'm worried about something that's not an issue, I don't know.
So. There hasn't been a rulemaking initiative in Act 250 over 10 years, so it's not as though you have much sort of precedence on how they would treat the requests like that. Also, I'm not aware of any other requests related to them changing criteria review. So I
wasn't thinking request, I was thinking about authority.
no, I know, but I'm trying to think if this has ever come up before, and I don't think it really has, so. It is definitely a policy choice. You are on LCAR. You have seen rules that come to the committee and how much authority LCAR has after something has been drafted. If you have a vested interest or a specific interest, being direct and specific is a good idea. If you are open to just seeing what they come up with, you could leave it to that.
let's go ahead.
I would rather have them come back to report on what they want. What their recommendations are, and then it would probably be whoever's here next year. It would probably be a combination of rule and statute, you know, we might still need to give them rulemaking authority to implement what they're recommending, but. They might have completely different ideas about how flexible they want to be or not than we would. And I think given how controversial, important, you know, how much conversation there is around both of these things, having the legislature look at it again would be helpful.
I don't have a problem with that. I was just thinking out loud, I want to make sure we won't inadvertently take the part of it.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with that.
I know we're gonna do next, but I just want to say that that's where my head was going as you were talking. It's like, what we asked for is a recommendation of statutory changes and rules that they would recommend, so that they have the necessary flexibility. Because I can imagine they need to rely on statute, but we want to give them flexibility for the shopping center in tier 3 to be able to, you know, navigate the
Right.
a specific request.
Is the timeline enough though? I mean, we're pushing out the implement, if we're waiting for a report back from that, do we need to give them more time before these things go into effect? Cause.
Yeah, well, and that, I actually wrote down next to this, like, by when, like, when should we, because ideally they would be coming back to us in time for next legislative session. To say this is what we would need to. You know.
Right, but then if they have to make rules after that, I'm just wondering if we pushed out some of the dates to December 31st, 27, is that enough time?
It's a good question.
I think that's almost 2 years. We can get with 1 year, probably, okay for now.
You know, what, it's possible that with the December 27 date, we could. it's less than ideal. Next year we could push it out again if we had to, based on this rulemaking, but, hate to. Push it out too much, so, yeah, but. Ideally, we would have this recommendation back from them by December of this year. So that we can move as quickly as possible to make sure that those changes get implemented. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I'm still just worried about the time after that, like, is
For rulemaking?
rulemaking and having, and making sure everybody understands it. I mean, we just heard testimony about how confusing it is for people and making sure that if we're gonna actually make it easier for things because there are fewer categories that we want people to understand that.
And I wish there was if there was language where we could just say, you have the authority to just do this now. Yeah,
I would
you're,
be nervous about that. It might not do what we
Yeah.
would want, or there might be unintentional
Mhm.
implications to it.
Mhm. Okay, Terry,
Process.
okay, so there really, yes,
So, and I'm looking at from S325.
yeah,
So we've kind of taken a lot of information, we've got, potentially we're gonna have to amend Act 181,
Mhm.
and a lot of the stuff we're hearing is stuff is rulemaking.
Mhm.
Where do we go, how does that affect 325?
you mean in terms of this particular section, yeah, so, I think the thought is that that's gonna. We need to set up, we need to get some recommendations for how the rules need to change and make sure that we have that they have statutory authority to do the kind of rulemaking that we're envisioning. And so that's all gonna have to roll out, I think, after, these get passed or amended potentially next year, so that's gonna take even more time.
I
So,
mean, it's all important,
yeah,
and everything we're hearing makes sense.
yeah, okay. Let's keep going. Do you feel like you have enough clarity for now on this, on what we're hoping for?
No, I think, so, I think the language at the top of page 8 at least partially addresses what you're asking. Do you want it to say legislative changes or statutory changes?
Yes, I would like it to be, both statutory changes and, rulemaking authority.
This is in the rules, this language right now, says rules adopted by the board shall include. We're not asking them to make rules right now.
Okay,
What we're asking for them is a report back. They shall report back to the legislature, to the committees of jurisdiction by December 15th of 2026. With recommendations for statutory and regulatory rule
Yeah.
changes necessary to
yeah, the criteria.
allow for fewer criteria in the review of tier 3 net report. Got it?
So statutory changes that will make authority.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it would just come out of that whole rulemaking stuff. Okay.
Okay. Before we go, I wanna just pick on, Ms. Gallagher. Thoughts? If you don't have thoughts yet, that's okay, but wanna give you the opportunity.
I think this makes sense,
Okay.
and maybe we should check in with Ellen afterwards on that to align proposed protocol.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, let's keep going.
Alright, so still on page 8, I mean, I think this is part of what you were just discussing. Right now, it says that the board shall file proposed rules with the Secretary of State and LCAR by December 31st, 2027. I wasn't sure if you're still with that each.
I think we are, yeah, and I think the land use review board had an earlier date, but I think this is fine. Okay, yes, okay.
So, section 6 has been added on the bottom of page 8 into page 9. And I will flag that there are no changes to the statute. So this is a miscommunication with me and the chair.
No, this is, I will own this.
Okay.
This, because, I knew that this was gonna come up, and so I was like, let's look at the language.
Sure.
But I wanted to check with you all before we actually struck the language, as opposed to, as you know, Mr. Foster was referencing about striking the word rare. I am okay with striking the word rare, but I wanted to check with you before we did that. Okay. Yes,
I'm just thinking, so I think it sounds like rare was kind of inadvertently slipped in last year, I'm thinking about a little bit. So I think it's probably something that makes sense.
yep, go ahead.
Can I ask a question about a comma? On line 5, is the comma after threatened correct? Is threatened and endangered a term that, or is it threatened, comma, and endangered?
Yeah, so species can either be threatened or endangered.
Okay, they're not both.
No.
I just remember.
I
What
think
is T and E?
T&E,
right.
yeah.
So both types of species need a permit, both T and E, so you need
Okay.
an endangered species permit for it.
For a threat, okay, so the comma is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
That's a good question.
the comments
To
correct.
find to sort of longer. Words are not usually inadvertently put in there. Yeah, there is a meaning somewhere that's in the language.
Usually, and there is, it's reminding me of. I think it was in the. The set of draft recommendations that was highlighting that there was the quotes that you brought up, which is a part of current law. Yeah, Pickett Street.
Oh,
Yeah, which is sort of like a
Well,
similar,
that was on my list to ask
but
about.
we're not there yet,
Yeah.
so that's a separate thing.
We'll get there.
Great, flagging it. Okay, let's keep going. So I think we're good to cross that out, great.
Okay. So, page 9, section 7, there are no changes, from the prior draft in this section. This is amending 24 VSA 4460, which is the authority of the municipal, review panels. And so this has the language, it spells out first in subsection G, the process that municipalities are supposed to go through when they're doing a land use review of a municipal permit application. So if you want to talk about that and how the permit conditions are transferred from an Act 50 permit to a municipal permit, that language is there. And on page 11 is where subsection H is being struck. And that this says within a tier 1A area, the appropriate municipal panel shall enforce any existing permits under Act 50 that has not had its permit conditions transferred to a municipal permit.
So this is where we yesterday was talking about leaving this section and just taking out the word not.
Correct. So I'm not written down.
So is that you? Okay.
So I don't,
There's the word, yeah, what's
That's
the
the word,
word?
yeah.
So let's just say it's out. So, okay. So on one level, what you're saying makes sense. Within a tier 1A area, the local municipality shall enforce any existing permits under the VSA chapter 1 that has had its permit conditions transferred. Which means by via the vote the amendment.
Yeah, so I disagree with that suggestion.
Okay.
I think,
Okay,
so the purpose of this original enforcement language, I thought actually worked well, but maybe it's not actually working. The appropriate municipal panel will always just be enforcing their permits. because the Act 250 conditions have been uploaded into the municipal permit. And that process, getting rid of any Act 250 old conditions that are no longer relevant, but just enforcing their permit.
Because it becomes that permit, once I take a permit number.
Yeah.
You're saying if anything, this is redundant,
Yeah,
it doesn't really not additive,
yeah.
yeah, even if you fix it.
Well, and then it would just be saying you would be enforcing an Act 250 condition, permit condition that may be out of date now. Because if it's gone through the municipal panel, there has been an update to the site in some way, where there has been an amendment municipal panel permit, but not an Act 250 permit.
So you're saying it's the construction.
I think so, but. So,
Policy.
yes, it is a policy question, thank you.
Have some suggested language from Paul Connor of South Burlington, which I just forwarded to the committee. His recommendation is to add language that would be a number 7 under G, because his concern was about the actual transfer. And so his language was, at the time of final action by the appropriate municipal panel, conditions contained within the permit previously issued to 10 VSA chapter 151 as amended shall be transferred to the municipality. So just makes it explicit about the transfer. No, you don't like that.
No, it already says that.
Okay,
So,
is it, okay,
I mean,
so,
I'm happy to consider amending it, but.
no,
Okay.
can you just point me at where?
So, so on page 9, in subdivision 2 of G,
Okay,
so for a development that already has an Act 250 permit, is located in the tier 1 area and has now applied for municipal zoning of permit or amendment. Subsection 2 starts, the panel reviewing the municipal permit or amendment shall include the conditions contained in the Act 250 permit unless the panel determines that the permit conditions pertain to any of the following, which then lists ones that they can get rid of.
So, but in case of who never explicitly says that you're taking over or taking over enforcement on the entire permit.
So. The panel shall include the conditions from the Act 250 permit unless they're no longer relevant. Those changes have to be recorded in the land record. And then H said, the municipal panel shall now enforce Act 250 permits that haven't actually gone through that transfer process. So. I think it's there, but I'm also happy to look at his language.
The meeting.
Well, yes, because you're making a slightly different policy choice.
because the H says that they have to enforce permits that already exist, so we're getting rid of that. And that just leaves that the permits that they have to enforce are the permits that have been amended in these ways on page 10. Yes, correct. So I think it does do it. Okay. I am still unclear, but I am happy to have more conversation offline, but
Sure.
if.
That
you feel like
that
it's
was the
there.
intent of
Yes.
what the language was, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and. If, hopefully with that explanation, if other folks in the room are still feeling unclear, like, let's talk more. Okay, cause, if it's there, then. We need to change it. Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's a moment of like, if we wanna put in
kind of a hokey boots and suspender language.
Oh,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah.
You do not need to.
Yeah, right. Okay, I'm willing to move on, but I'm just gonna flag that like, I need to have more conversations about that to make sure that make sure that I'm clear. Cause I think I was trying to do too many things, like reading too many options simultaneously. So let's keep going. Where are we at? Oh, section 8.
Yep, on page 11, so section 8 hasn't changed, but this is saying October 1, 2026. The board needs to update its tier 1A area guidelines to set procedural to ensure consistent application of the requirements across municipalities. Does that say standards?
Yeah, I think there's a word missing.
Yes,
Yeah.
there is, so. Oh, yes, okay, that is an accidental typo, yes, it should be standards.
Okay.
Interested in the committee's thought on this. We've heard that, there's a couple of groups that think it's not necessary. I mean, I had concerns about the consistency across time, but I'm curious for your thoughts, what you would like to do with this.
I think it's like.
It seems to me that they are kind of doing this along the way anyway, and that anytime there's a new big process, things are gonna evolve. They learn from each time they do it. I'm a little worried that this would give them extra work to do because they need to like present something or produce something rather than just have it be organically part of the process.
Any other thoughts?
So are you think the language out?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's not necessary, it seems to me that they're doing it anyway.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
They said that.
Okay.
And if it all becomes clear that they're not, like, happy to revisit that. But that's perfectly fine, okay. Thank you, let's keep going.
Section 9 is amending the effective dates from Act 181. So subdivision 1 on line 15 is the tiered jurisdiction. The criterion 8C. And
I just wanted to note, sorry,
no, go ahead.
because we're in section 9 now, yeah?
Yep.
I just want to note that the land use review board's set of recommendations has this being pushed out to January 1 of 28.
Right, I think to make it consistent, we were saying December 31st and 27, which is one day different.
Yeah, either way,
Because we pushed a bunch of things to 31.
Yep.
December 31.
I just wanted to note, it's at least 6 months or so out from that date, but yes.
That was out of the back of your head. The reason they said January 1 as opposed to December 31st.
Oh.
They were worried about a 1 day lapse, just though that. I'm not sure there is or isn't, but that's why they said January 1. So I'm not even told whether the details of that, but I remember that we really got a 1 day lapse.
I thought you brought that up.
Yeah.
Did they bring that up too?
If you were in,
I don't, yeah,
I think, but maybe not been.
that might be a thing that I will let the house figure out. It's like, one day.
Well, yeah, I mean, they had both of these, we have them 12/31/27, they had them both January 1, 28.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if they feel like that's better, it's one day, I mean. we could
They also
change
said
that.
they trust that one, they said, they just did it that way because they had that, somehow they had thought there might be 1 day lapse.
I don't care.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, either one is fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I would just make them consistent. for
Yeah.
us, yeah.
Yeah.
So just so you know, subdivision 1, there are the definitions related to 8C and the 8C criterion itself. Section 21 are the tier 2 and 3 jurisdictional triggers. Subdivision 2, section 19 is the road. The so-called road jurisdiction.
I apologize, I wanna write that down, I think I have it written down on a different draft, but can you just say that one more time?
Sure, section 12
Yep.
are the definitions related to criterion 8C,
Okay.
forest blocks and habitat factors.
Mhm.
And then section 13 is actually the new criterion 8C.
Okay,
Section
Are you on 2.2, Ellen?
I am, and it's on page 11, line 15. So I'm in the effective date sections. So these are the old sections that were in Act 181. Yep.
sorry, so 12 is the rules?
No,
No, sorry.
12, the definitions of forest blocks
Okay, okay.
related to criterion 8C.
Yep, okay,
Section 13 is actually criterion 8C.
okay,
Section 21 adds the jurisdictional triggers for tier 2 and tier 3.
okay,
And section 19 is the road jurisdiction trigger.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Great, so then and I'm changing those dates to be January 1, 2028.
Whichever you think.
Either one.
Yeah,
Okay.
whichever you think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. The last section, section 10, is this tier 1B appeals report. It's on page 12. It hasn't changed from the prior draft. And so this is by January 15th, 2027, the Land Use Review Board, after consulting with BAFTA, VLCT, and our the NRC, and the Vermont planners shall report to the General Assembly on recommendations for how to limit the number of appeals of municipal zoning permits that can be brought against housing projects located within tier 1B areas. The board shall identify mechanisms for limiting appeals that allow municipalities to address legitimate concerns with projects, and also identify the most commonly raised issues on appeal, evaluate statutory or procedural tools to limit duplicative or non-material appeals, and recommend legislative action if necessary, if any, if needed, if any, and then submit the report to the fall.
So the LURB does not wanna do this, they don't think it's their jurisdiction, because it's about municipal appeals. I think they're also concerned that they have a lot of other stuff to do, and this would distract them from it, so I think those are compelling arguments. I think these organizations, many of whom are in the room, could just kind of get together and do this on their own, we can't direct them to, but they could do it and submit a report. Y'all are always welcome to report.
I mean, I was appreciating the suggestion to make it a legislative studies committee. I think that would be fine. I think that would take some significant reworking of how this functions.
I think it's not a necessary thing to have a legislative, this is like. Legislative committees are for big things, this is, I mean, I know this is big for.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like these organizations could get together and talk about how they could. And. The legislative study committees cost money, they take staff time, they do all these things, and. This is a municipal issue also, I just feel like it's. Not legislative committee material.
And we also don't know if it's an issue.
It's what,
If it's an issue.
That's a fair point too, I mean, I think they can just sort of. Like I said, they're welcome to come and. Talk amongst themselves about it.
other thoughts on this? No?
I mean, if the land use review board doesn't want
Mm-hmm.
it, it would be hard pressed to imagine that they're gonna do a good job with it if we force them to do something they really don't wanna do.
Hmm.
So I think we just can't let these people do their work.
I'd like to put a pin in this one. I'm hearing you that most people don't wanna do it. I'm not ready to jettison it quite yet. Let's put a hold on that one. More conversation to be continued, if that's okay. I appreciate
Leave it in for now.
but I'm appreciating that we're thinking about just jettisoning it,
Just get
jettisoning it.
a new version.
Oh, yes, yes, we'll get a new version.
What kind of? Right,
Okay.
another opposition.
Well, there are also some suggestions and
Right.
others
Mhm,
that are.
would love to.
talk through those.
Yes, would love to talk through that. Unfortunately, we need to transition to a different bill at this moment. Yes,
Before we transition on to this, though, I just, 802 Homes yesterday did not get to testify. And I think, I haven't had a chance to read it, I know VLCT submitted. But I think it might be a good time at this point in the next 24 hours to circle back to the housing people, get their perspective.
yes, fully agree. We need to get them
Was
on
that-
the agenda.
This is all one?
Yeah.
We have a fair bit of time tomorrow, so I think that would be excellent. To hear from them. There was a couple people that we heard from yesterday, but yes.
I know we definitely.
Oh,
had
it was
802 Homes.
one was,
Oh, I'm sorry, let's go homes.
let's put phones,
Bill,
yeah.
this on this.
So we'll hear from, we'll get them on the agenda for tomorrow.
Commissioners here, do you wanna?
If you wanted to.
Commissioner.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
It's been a while since I heard from Ms. Sullivan, yeah, anyway, so we have time tomorrow. But tomorrow's gonna be, like, we're gonna dive deep into this and try to get it done.
Are we not, do we not have time to go through these, the VAPTA and
I
LERP?
don't think we have time,
Okay.
right now.
Confusing.
So yeah,
I just would like to go through all the stuff we have.
yes.
And then have another draft and then have people react to that. It gets really confusing to have all these things on the table
Yes.
that we haven't dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
We have to work nights.
It's not about that, I do work nights.
That's a rule.
I mean,
Well,
we have,
so thinking out loud here, so, Ellen, you have to leave.
No,
You do not have to leave.
For the next.
Soon, okay, there's one possibility is that, because we're on this topic and it is important, we could wait on a review of 328, we could do that tomorrow.
You should.
this is the housing bill, it's in my comment.
Oh. Yeah,
There are 3 zoning sections, so it's actually short, fairly short.
and Senator Rogers, you'd like to do that sooner rather than later. And then the hope is to take some testimony in 138. And then we need to talk about 224.
I mean, we could wait on 138 because I haven't even had a chance to review that draft.
Sure.
So let's do that tomorrow.
We can do that tomorrow. So what if we swap, if you're here anyway at 11, if I'm not mistaken, Ellen, right? So we could just replace that with more testimony in 325. Or just, not testimony, keep going through it.
Yeah.
We do have some folks here who are waiting to testify in 138, so want to honor them. But then we could go back to 325.
Well, there's a new draft. I'd really like the chance to go through
Yes,
the new
that's-
draft at 138 before we get testimony on it.
Oh,
Because I have
okay.
changes to give to Ellen.
Oh, okay, well,
And I've not had that chance to do that. And
Okay.
so I mean, I see that people, with apologies to Josh, but he's in the building a lot, he can probably wait.
yeah,
My
And
testimony is 2 minutes on this, that's all.
and the same Samantha and Aaron, the only one is Aaron, who's not always there.
yes, and is Aaron with us?
He said yes, but he didn't join virtually yet because what time? He said 10. He said he's 10,
Yeah, he's
20.
not on until,
He didn't come on and he just was Zoom link, so I don't know where he's.
okay, if we could have you come back tomorrow, and then we'll see if we can reschedule Aaron tomorrow. And that way, do you want that? That way we could keep going until basically 11:30. On this,
I think that would be,
which would be great, okay.
our brains are in it, right?
I think that's, I support it, I would like to spend at least the last 20 minutes of that time doing 328. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's keep going on 325 for now, and let's move to Just to check, I don't think we need to do anything more with the land use review board's recommendations, 'cause I think we've talked through all of them. My preference would be to move towards. Wait, have we talked about them? I'll just do a quick scan here and see if there's anything that we haven't talked it through from the land use review board's recommendations.
Had a recommendation on page 2. That I don't know if we talked about, or maybe.
Yeah,
We did,
yeah.
do that.
I think we've talked through all of their recommendations. So
There's
unless you're finding something else.
There's one that on page 3. There was a question of whether to put a period on line
Oh,
6
yes.
after
Yep.
river corridor rule period.
Yes. So. And if I'm recalling, thank you, that was because the remainder of that sentence was going beyond something.
Yeah,
Um,
match the other. Exactly, the other, interim capacity sections. Exactly, if they were, saying to be consistent.
I'm okay with striking the rest of that language.
Line 7 through 11.
Yeah.
Oh. Suggested something, and I have a question mark, so I'm not sure I understood. It had. For the housing institutions. We had a date change, I can't find it. Oh, okay, there it is. Yep, that's it.
Okay. Anybody finding anything else we haven't talked about? Okay,
On the little one.
On the little
There's
one.
that to one.
yes, so let's go to the bad suggestions. Okay, so
We have this. I saw it, I don't currently have.
do you need a copy?
We have to do another copy of this.
What does she need?
Oh,
The map,
copy of the
Yeah.
messages.
I have it.
Okay, so the first change is about recommending that they include the community investment board in the in the initial conversations pre-permitting or something like that.
First meeting.
Yeah, I was okay with including the community investment board. That seems good to me. The next part that there's reasonable evidence to that. I guess I don't have strong feelings about that language. On line 19.
What's the date of this? That's
218.
218.
2026, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't really care about the language on line 19, you could do it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the next paragraph that's the more.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so confirming that there's enough land to meet housing targets. This is one that I will say I have mixed feelings about. But. So I'm curious for everybody's thoughts.
This is completely new language.
Yes.
I think it is.
And what it's trying to do is work to make it bigger.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's enough, it's a big policy now.
Yeah, that's my inclination at this point as well.
Talk about that there.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what substantial majority of means as well, that,
yeah.
I think that's existing language.
is it existing line? This
This is gonna
paragraph
be.
Elsewhere.
Oh, it's elsewhere, okay,
Oh, okay.
is it defined?
So happy to revisit that language, see if people wanna, press for that, but my inclination right now is to not include that. This next section about a new process for regional plan amendments and tier 1B status. Want to read through it, but my inclination is to accept it.
Yeah.
This is an attempt to, this is supposed to allow for tier 1B status. Approval
Mhm.
in the interim periods, basically, like,
Mhm.
so, okay. Um.
Now. There are comments that the LURB has on this language. I don't know if folks have that.
Was that in the HERS thing?
No, it's separate. Wait, it's yet another document.
It's dated 2/18.
I'm not sure.
Sorry. I work here. Is it here? Yes. That's what you.
This is, oh, I don't, I write one,
This is-
okay.
This is not.
Oh, we gotta stop, so
Yeah.
after this, literally, I'm
Yeah.
okay to this.
So I think it would actually be beneficial to take just a quick break.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's just take a 2-minute break, make sure that everybody has all the copies and everything.
okay.
Yeah. think we have,
We're live.
I think we
Everybody
have,
has a document.
I think we have.
Everybody just needs.
It was posted yesterday,
Yes.
under yesterday's date,
Okay,
and I have a paper now. Yeah.
okay,
Excellent.
and so theoretically, we should have both. Baptist recommendations and the Lord's comments on Baptist. No, just Baptist, just the Lord's comments on Baptist?
Do you need Blur? I did get Blur, I thought yesterday as well.
It's here.
I've got extra.
Okay, all right.
And I got extra. Blur.
Thank you. Does that say Blur? Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Okay, okay. Right, so just look at both of these.
Yeah.
Basically, basically. Okay. So I think we're up to part N, which is about the regional plan amendments. Now, the land use review board's comments, they add into that non-minor future land use map amendments. And I am fine with that. In addition,
Wait, non-minor?
Yes, I don't love that.
you don't know.
Well, I would like, I'm sorry, I'll look at it in context, because is there already language regarding how applying there is processed?
There is, but that's that 10-acre change that we can make without going through the process, and that's called a minor
Yes,
change.
okay.
Non-minor is a part of the regional plan amendment. According to this. So in tier 1B areas, status requests can be made separate from the regional plan approval or the amendment process. I think that's fine with me.
Not done.
One with the advance.
This is all, the top of page 2 is all part of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Up to the after adoption of regional plan, the plan commission shall submit. Request for alert. Permit determination.
Are there any concerns you have about this language in terms of?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Commissioners?
Yes, yes, thank you, sorry about that. In your space.
No, you're
I'm feeling okay with basically all of section N, both 1 and 2. Okay. Unless there's objections,
You guys okay with that?
Where are we?
we are at the bottom of page 1, it starts the,
After recommendations or
well, I'm kind of looking at both of them simultaneously. The VAPTA has said that they're okay with the LURB's comments on their recommendations, so
Adding non-minor.
adding non-minor. So I'm okay with all of that. unless there's objections, because we'll have another chance to look at this, if it gets, if we put it in the bill, so.
Easier to solve. Sure.
Yes, so I think for now, let's just say we're good, unless there's objections, we'll move on.
Yeah.
Look,
Not gonna expire anything.
yep, I would like to include the extension, for these plans so that they don't expire.
Is that just would that include town plans or just the regional plans? What about town plans if they expire?
So I'm just seeing this different time, it just says regional plans, so I don't, that's all I'm.
And
When town's plans expire, that doesn't,
Because they don't lose authority when they expire,
okay,
but I actually haven't like heard or read this proposal yet, so I'm not the person to ask.
and
You guys to ask.
and so Catherine, that this would just apply to regional plans, not municipal plans, and there's no need, is there a need at this point to extend municipal plans?
There could be an argument made that it would be beneficial because if a regional plan expires while we're going through the process of updating, if a municipal plan expired, we were going through the process of updating the regional plan, they're not eligible for tier 1B.
yeah, I mean, because I have a bunch of my towns, including Middlebury, which.
We have one that's getting adopted the same night as our regional plan, so
Yeah.
I am
So-
okay with including.
I know they're going through the process of updating it, but it might delay the. 1B.
So you would like to add into that an extension, not just of the regional plans, but of municipal plans, that.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm asking is are there unintended consequences that I don't know about? You know, so that's, I would defer to you planners that know more about this than me.
I can't think of any negative unintended consequences.
And I know,
Agreed.
Ms. Sheehan, if
Oh, I'm
you could just identify yourself for the record.
For the record, Amanda Sheehan from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. I would say in addition to what Catherine said about a potential benefit of extending, is that while the FLU mapping process is going forward at the regional level, there's limited planning capacity for municipal planners to rely on those resources as well. And forum and vision capacity, so I think that's an additional sort of benefit to help this along. And I cannot immediately think of any negative unintended consequences of allowing extra time.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
So let's do it for both, if
Yeah.
that's okay with y'all.
This goes till the end of the year.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that sounds good to me.
Can you say
Say, so I'm not
it? Inferring.
Yeah, so that I think that we, for any plans, any regional or municipal plans that expire prior to December 31st, 2026, they shall be automatically, I don't know what the right wording is, but they'll,
Well, so their language here is, regional plans, I think we could say, and municipal plans expiring in 2026 shall have their plan expiration dates extended until December 31st, 2026.
Okay, because I guess I wanted to know the universe you're talking about, it's only those that were set to expire before December 31st, and you're just bringing them all to the correct.
Right. Yeah.
okay.
Okay, great. I think any objections to that? Hey, let's keep going. So now I think we're in section XX, but it's 24 VSA 4325 or 52.
Well, so sorry, right above that, it does also say adjust other parts of 43, 48 to conform, so I'm also gonna do that.
Oh, yep,
Yeah.
yep, thank you.
Conform with the municipal plans or to conform?
Well, I believe it's address amendment versus adoption, which is required, so.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think I just didn't even process that. Oh, this is the energy planning.
Yeah.
I'd like to hold off on that. I realize I think that would make the process smoother. Would like to hear more about that before we adopt it.
I did want to flag that the House Energy's Committee bill currently has language regarding updating the the process for enhanced energy planning.
Oh.
I don't know if this is the same language that's in there.
It's different language. We prefer the House Energy version, and now that that's moving forward, I think
Okay.
he's supposed to vote it out. This was a placeholder in case that didn't happen.
Okay, so we're gonna just
Cool.
take this right.
That's good. They've presumably taken testimony. That's good.
Mhm.
What my concern.
Yeah.
Taken testimony.
And we had worked with DPS on this language, so they had seen. it.
Okay.
But we preferred the House version.
Okay, that's great. So now we're up to 24 VSA 30 or 4348A. Elements for regional plan. I have questions about the compatible with regionally approved municipal plans. In terms of the deference that we were talking about, but I am okay with later in that paragraph, consistent with the smart growth principles. In this title, and then ultimately adding back. Smart growth principles.
I do wanna just flag, the smart growth principles were not repealed.
Oh.
They're in chapter 76. However, that section is sunsets in 2034, so having them somewhere else is a good idea, but they did not get repealed.
Thank you.
Helpful to know.
That is helpful to know. Why I'm talking.
In 2791, anyone is looking for it.
I was surprised to hear that they were in it for a year. I was like, there's no way that my phone is.
Just put in a time machine ahead.
Any other comments about, it's like section 12 there, that paragraph 12.
The compatible with regionally approved municipal plans.
Yeah.
I mean. That seems like something we would want to do, not,
I don't.
okay, I don't know.
It's a policy change. So you should try not to do that. We haven't really vetted. I am in favor of that, well, the extent it's consistent with the smart growth principles. This line doesn't need to be there. The future land zone based on the elements in this section. Says the board president, that's what it's supposed to be. And they will, to the extent they need to, make it. Compatible. I don't think it's a change that we have fully vetted.
All right, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's fine.
That's fine. Let's keep going. We're into paragraph labeled A. This is,
So it gets into the different categories of the noun and the future land use maps.
yes. I think the key, well, so there's, I see this as having this paragraph having three different chunks of potential changes. So one is about the, definition of, is it traditional and historic, or is it, or historic, and then the mix of, different elements. That's one piece which we should talk about. The second piece is this municipalities having more than one center, including emerging centers and anchor planned growth village areas. Basically the municipalities can have more than one. And then the third part being, it's the intent that almost every town in Vermont should have at least one village center. And going in reverse order, I'm okay with this last part about the intent that almost every town in Vermont should have at least one village center. The blurb has some recommendations for changes, but I think it's useful to include our intent there. Do you have some thoughts on that?
I need to remind myself of the requirements to become a village, not just village center, because there are a number of towns that have no center, period.
Mm-hmm.
And then soils matter for this.
For a village center?
So you can't have an intent to have the soils, No, okay.
No, but do you have thoughts on?
I do wanna make sure we're clear on what we're talking about here, these are as mapped in the regional plan. The designation program requirements are technically separate. It does say here in this section that currently under the statute, village centers are not required to have water, wastewater zoning. So, just want to be clear that,
Okay.
yes.
So,
I feel like this, I'm not sure what the unintended consequences of this might be, if there are any, I'm not sure I understand it. I feel like it sounds good, but I don't know exactly what it would mean
Mm-hmm.
to put that intent, I mean, I know it's just intent,
Mm-hmm.
and then the almost every town, it feels vague to me.
Yeah.
So it's like, our intent is vague, and I'm not sure what it means,
Well,
so
the-
I'd be concerned.
Yeah, so the LURB's comments on this is it should say, the intent is that every town in Vermont may have at least one village center, which.
Oh. Yeah, cause also the word should, it's like.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
I kind of like that a little better, cause it's
Okay.
more clear and it also
Mhm.
is. A may, not a should.
Mhm.
I do also like the municipalities may have have more than one center, including emerging centers, and because that is true for a couple of my municipalities.
I am also, I also like that.
I do too, the danger is small. And but I'm also in favor of it, I just wondering if we need to define it better. Because you and I had this conversation, some towns need to show their center of gravity. And to allow them to do that, so activism. But I just want to make sure this doesn't just become one big blob and sprawl, and so, one thing that happened, really say what we're trying to do here.
Well, I mean, I understand that concern, and I'm wondering, I mean, I think this is stating something that already happened, especially since it's a May. I mean, I think the town in my area that's a really good example of this is Moncton. And it's a very, very rural town, but it has like 2, 3 little 4 corners that are like village center things, and they mapped it really well to have all of those things on their plan. But also conserved areas and, so I don't think there's anything that is prohibiting it right now, if I'm correct, you know more than me, Catherine. But this is making it explicit that they may do it, so in case there are towns that are worried.
My thought is that we include this language for now, and if there's wordsmithing that we want to do, that we can think about that and come back to it. Okay, and then again, working our way backwards through that paragraph, the historic piece of it, I know there's some controversy over that phrase. So one possibility is that we leave it out for now and hear more and potentially put it back in after we hear a little bit. Does that make sense? Okay.
No, I know what, I don't know what you just.
Okay.
Do you want me to
Go
go
ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so the changes from lines 21 on page 3. Lines 21 that starts with crossing out beyond for historic, down through line 24 that says standalone. That one, we would not include that change. But we would include the line municipalities may have. That left in the line, and then the final lines, 26, 27, and 28, that changed, but with the LURB, with the suggestions. Okay.
Okay, any objection to that? Okay, great, let's keep going. Paragraph B, planned growth areas. These areas either surround or are adjacent to downtown centers or village centers. This is as a planned growth area. High concentrations of population, I'm fine with that change. We do have, any objections to that sentence?
Okay. There's,
Which one are you on? You on?
that's right. Seriously, surrender.
Yes, exactly, yep.
Well, I don't know, it feels kind of restrictive to. I mean, we have towns, probably don't have any downtown center or village.
Well, this, I kind of want to go back to Mr. Metrick on this, because
Yeah.
because what you're, if I'm understanding you correctly, Senator Beck's like, maybe they don't have to surround or be adjacent to downtowns, maybe they could be elsewhere, is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, if they're planned.
Do you, any thoughts on that, so, Mr. Metrick?
Yes, I have two thoughts. One is that is the very reason why we were seeking the language change from historic to traditional or historic. And so we could accommodate those areas that are planned for these more growth areas that still meet the characteristics of centers. So up above, that's one of the reasons why we were seeking out language change. My second thought is if that's the route you want to go, I do think that that's a big policy change and would require you to amend some of the other requirements under the plan growth areas that require connections to the centers.
So you are not wanting to include that sentence then?
I am wanting to include that sentence because I think it is important that they're connected to the centers. But the reason.
Okay.
Yeah,
What do you mean by connected?
so they're connected in some way, they touch in some way, whether it's along the road corridor, whether it's a surrounding.
So if I have a village center here. And there's a really good piece of land over here that would be a good place for a growth center. And they're connected by a road. Is that okay?
The future land use area on the map would need to find a way to connect.
It would have to be adjacent, have to be
It would have to be
abutting.
You're talking about it.
Some way.
Land connection.
Yeah,
I don't know, I mean, I think it's just pretty restrictive.
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
the rest of the statute as it's set up right now. To meet the other criteria, it has to be adjacent to the centers, contiguous in some way, but it doesn't actually ever say that in statute.
Doesn't say it's.
But it doesn't say it explicitly like that. I think to this area, like what you're talking about, there's a good piece of land that's like the town is planning for a new emerging center. That is why we were seeking a language change of above in centers, is to accommodate situations like that rather than a plan. So the same concept, but getting to it.
Senator Williams, did you have questions?
No, I was thinking my community's got a village in town. And the planned growth area has water already to it. And it's on the map, but it's technically in the town, so. So it's kind of outside, it's not really connected to
Yeah.
the village center, but it's already planned.
So is your inclination to not include,
Or we were. I mean,
or is Senator Beck, do you have any more thoughts on this one?
Yeah, my only thought is I think that's pretty restrictive, especially for areas of the state that don't even have downtown centers or.
in this planned growth area is walkable, bikeable, for the
Well, that's
center,
coming up,
okay.
that's,
so-
I would say,
Yes,
if this is a concern, that we leave it out. We just did that for language.
Yeah.
It was a concern for center of
Okay.
comfort. So this is a concern for center of comfort. It's just leave it out.
okay, we'll leave it out and we can hear more about it if people want. And then there is this language in the next sentence that makes it again historic or non-historic. I'm assuming that we're gonna leave that out as well. The historic is something to talk more about.
Yeah, so we just leave all of that out and maybe we'll get more testimony in the council.
Okay, and then. I'm on the next page or the next, or later in the paragraph. These areas include new town centers, downtowns, village centers, growth centers, and the. Reasoning I had written down for leaving that was because, these are already centers, these are, or should be a part of the centers and not part of the planned growth areas. And that made sense to me, does that make sense to you, Norm?
I like.
This is the definition of growth plan.
You want line 3, page 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep. So I was okay with taking that out. That. If that makes sense to others.
Are you comfortable with that, Scott? I was thinking this was all part of the same thing. But.
I mean,
If downtowns. That's a part of A.
yeah, be careful, don't write it, that's slow. I mean. Again, an elimination of instance here, but does that make it more restrictive?
Well, so these are places that are in the future land use maps. And so I do see that, you know, if you've got one area that's called downtowns or village centers. That having downtowns be referenced in a different section is confusing.
And well, so I think we're talking about the difference of if the planned growth area actually overlaps the center or is adjacent to it.
Oh, that's good.
That's where you're going for.
Yes, I think elimination of this language gives us, but if you delete new town centers, downtowns and village centers, it gives us the flexibility to place them either in centers or in the plain growth area, whatever makes sense. So it's,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this, okay.
Yeah.
And does that include the next paragraph, triple Y?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
So what about the language that's the. Line 33 on the bottom three, line 1 on the top of the board. Deleting those ands. Just trying to be precise for Ellen.
Oh, I was gonna hold off on those.
Okay,
because
so
it had
that's
to
part
do-
of the notes,
Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
all right.
And then, so on page 4, line 6, these areas should generally meet the smart growth principles. Definition and blah, 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 blah. So I think the reason that we are deleting that is because we're referencing it elsewhere.
Yes, okay.
So it comes up again. Where does it come up with that? Because it's, I know
It
it's.
was suggested to be added on page 3. Lines 11 and 12. So it would that way it refers to all of our future land use planning and not just specific.
Oh, right, okay, so. We're not just interested in smart growth principles in planned growth areas.
Correct.
We want them for all of.
Yes.
I'm okay with that change?
Yep.
We're good, okay. So we already talked about page 4, line 11, so I think we're ready to move on to line 15, is that fair? Okay. Okay, the area provides, so this is under planned growth areas. So area provides opportunity for development, infill, development and redevelopment. Housing targets. I will say this one, I had questions about. I'm not sure that I disagree, but I had questions, so would love to hear more about that, unless other folks are clearly feeling very comfortable about that.
I'm just not sure what is this area, what in this.
in this paragraph is the
Under
land growth
growth
areas
areas.
is okay,
Mhm.
okay. Let's,
Do the other folks have thoughts about this?
I'm okay with it, sure.
You're okay with it?
yeah, you can okay with that.
Okay, if I'm the only one that had questions, I'm okay to include it. Okay,
Sure.
okay. Great, let's include it then.
We're on to the next paragraph, and this is my question, why is complete streets in quotation marks? You know,
Oh, yeah,
probably precedes you drafting it. Why,
Well, sometimes when something is a proper, like. We put quotes around it, but it probably was quotes around it.
I mean, it's lowercase too, usually it's capitalized if it's in a draft title.
Where were you?
I
I could think that I mean, what the rule is, they will probably flag it when I get it to them.
It looks just weird and it made me wonder if it was a real thing. I mean, I know it's a real thing, but like, you know how sometimes you air quote things like,
not really.
oh, complete street, you know, it's like not real.
I do wanna go back briefly, sorry, I don't wanna.
I'm gonna ask that.
You can call me out.
I do wanna go, back to, III, line 9. Because the LURB had a recommendation that they wanted to replace, within walking distance to saying generally has multimodal connection.
doesn't want to make it sound clear.
I'm trying to, say more than just walking distance, you know, we can bike there, bus or something. I'm okay with that. That's all right, okay. Okay, so that's the LURB recommendation. Sorry, I think we're good to go down.
I do wanna just flag that, the strikeout of Newtown Center and Growth Center is slightly different than what's above.
Oh, because it all, do you mean in on line 11?
Yeah. I think it is consistent, but will you explain what you're doing there?
Yes, I will explain what we are doing.
On line 11.
Triple letter I, line 11.
Yeah.
So this is saying that a planned growth area has to be generally within has to have a multimodal connection using the LURB language to the municipality or the neighboring municipalities, downtown center or village center. We're suggesting striking Newtown Center or Growth Center because they go away in December. December 31st of 2026.
So,
Okay,
Okay,
great.
okay.
There will be no new town center.
Okay, by my count, we are up to paragraph 7 or line 17. Is that fair? Okay. Mr. Forms of complete streets, and we're gonna find out more about that, principles described. Okay, and deleting. It's not just pedestrian access.
what's a complete street?
That's a big question.
Is that mean no cul-de-sacs, or does that have to start somewhere and go to the?
It's like
Auto lanes, bike lane.
Right,
sidewalks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a whole like,
Yes, there's a program under 19 VSA chapter 24 that establishes that when new things are being built, it should have multimodal. So, sidewalks, bike lanes, it should be a complete
So-
street.
the LURB's comment on this particular part, says that it is, the multimodal access is covered previously, so this is unnecessary.
Wait, but not the whole paragraph.
No, just the choice.
Okay.
So then, yes to these changes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay, now we're up to village areas. And I would like to hear more testimony about traditional versus existing, like this is one that I need some examples. Why that is an important change.
So should we hold off on these?
We can let that traditional versus existing piece go.
What's that?
We can let that particular change go.
Oh, you can let it go? Okay,
One less thing to talk about.
okay, we're not gonna do that. Okay, down to line 27. And walking distance from the street.
Are we okay with the or, not the and, till I miss them, line 25?
So I think
I'm okay with that.
the end of pretty restricted.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, just make it matter.
Yeah.
Well, it does.
Yeah. Live within. I'm appreciating a reference to. The downtown center or village center instead of the core.
Well, it probably is a little bit of a typo for,
Oh, okay.
right, because it's in that one point where you kind of think after this core.
I think that is true, that's
They were
artifact.
originally called the word.
Different version of this. So, okay to do 27, the addition for 27, 28. These areas include existing village centers designations and similar areas statewide, which is larger than village. Oh, this is confusing because we're no longer in the planned growth areas section, we're in the village areas.
Yeah.
And to say that. Well, I guess it is a village area, but it's larger than the village center. You can see, I can see that, but any comments about this, Dimitri? Or,
Yes, because village centers are actually included in centers and not in village areas. That's why we're proposing deleting this.
oh, because this sort of
This is
proposes that
village.
it's encompassing, that it
Yes.
was the maps overlap.
And I
We
think
don't want maps to
That's
overlap.
also a remnant, because originally they were all
Okay.
encompassing, you know.
Got you. Okay, don't want it to overlap. That makes sense to me. Any objections to that? Okay, great. Top of page 5, I'm okay with changing from municipal to public. Yes. Great. Okay, the area, that's so, line 5. There is some opportunity for infill development, new development areas where the village can grow. Support the development of housing to be original housing targets. I have questions. So housing targets. So I've had questions about housing targets, continue to have questions about housing targets, so hold off on that for now.
Doesn't need to be, yeah. On here.
Oh, in front of support,
More in front of this.
Regional, are you suggesting it?
Or.
oh, yeah,
Hopefully, we'll be supporting both, but
yeah,
is that?
well, let's talk more about that one. Moving on to enterprise areas. And hearing Senator Hardy's comment from yesterday.
Oh, about airplanes next. to
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciating that maybe they just are, but this is one I think based on your comment and agreeing, you know, that do we want to have industrial parks
And
or mining?
next to, and planned growth areas include housing.
So,
So I think I'm not comfortable with this. I would want more.
yeah, we can talk more about it. I'm seeing that you have things to say about this, Sullivan. So to be continued on that one. So no for now, but we can come back. Rural work conservation. Oh.
These
yeah.
are, this is the whole maps are not regulatory. And these areas change So they don't want them on the regional planning maps because this is not part of their responsibility.
I had. I had questions about this. It's not that I don't want to include these, but. Because there's two sentences here and it feels like two very different things. So the first one being. About the 30 by 30 and 50 by 50. Well, actually, I'd just like to take a temperature of the group. What's your sense about that particular sentence?
Line 21, you're on.
Yes, 21 and 22.
10 BSA 89, that's the 1550.
Yeah, 30 by 30 and 50 by 50.
And this is just saying that the regional planning maps are not going to include them, right?
Well, the first sentence is about that these policies are intended to help meet those goals. I feel like this is a bigger question and I'm inclined to keep the strikeout because I think it's kind of a different topic that is gonna need more attention.
I agree.
But what do you think, Senator Binders?
Well, this was in here, this is current, right?
Yes, this is current law,
And I remember this discussion on the both yesterday and here,
last year,
yeah,
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. And it was mostly just so people could in one place, with the transparency over it, see where everything was, one stop, and I definitely argued.
The LURB's comments about this are that, actually, they don't have a comment on this sentence. They have a comment on the next sentence.
I'm okay with taking it, it's not. It was for enhancements to help people
Yeah.
understand where it is, where they are,
Yeah,
and hopefully the regional commissions will have some methodology, some way to do that. for
Right.
People anyway.
and actually, now that I'm reading it, the LURB's comment is that that neither 30 by 30, 50 by 50, or the tier 3 areas are influenced by the regional plan maps. So, given that, I'm okay with taking out both of those pieces. Unless there's,
It's fine with me.
okay. Okay, so we are gonna do that. Okay. And we have a little bit more time here. Okay, with the exception of pre-existing non-conforming designations improved. Oh, this is what is the part that we said was duplicative. I don't have strong feelings about that.
It's actually duplicative.
Could we ask you, Ellen, to look to see if it is in fact duplicative? If it is duplicative, fine to take it out. If for some reason it is not, let's keep it in. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. Oh, yes, the community investment program. For what it's worth, I liked the idea of having references back to the future land use map areas. Which is done for planned growth area. And it's done at the, on line 24 for village areas.
And not on the other three.
Yes, well, so the sprawl repair is just referencing smart growth principles, which I think we can. I think we're agreed that we're gonna wanna add smart growth principles into a permanent part of statute. So adding a reference there, I think is fine.
The one note I had on this whole section,
Yes,
since the community investment program is run by ACCD, was to make sure they were comfortable with these changes before we mess with their
That's fair.
program.
so I think we should have,
Commissioner's not here now, but
so Jude, if we can make sure that we are adding Alex Farrell to the agenda for tomorrow. That would be good.
I did.
Okay, amazing. And then adding a reference under downtown centers or village centers. I think that makes sense. I mean, I guess my inclination is to make those changes and then let them comment on it, unless you think we should do the opposite. Should we wait? Should we not do it? Let them,
I'm very skeptical about changing this work. Language for the tax credits. There's not a lot of money. And it's gonna get diluted, and it's gonna go kind of everywhere, the whole point was historic. So I think.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty big policy
This
change.
is a big policy change, we should wait on it.
oh, okay, so are you, sorry, so. I wanna make sure I'm understanding. Are you saying don't do any of the changes for the community investment board program, or are you saying just don't do downtowns and village centers?
I think what we wanna be careful of is that we're not including the tax credit program. But
So-
crossing out on line 15. Portion which
Oh, the
is-
historic.
That's a huge change.
Yeah, I guess this whole section, we should, before putting it into the bill, we should have the commissioner, because. Senator Baumgart is right, this is the sort of basis
Yeah.
for a tax credit program
Mhm.
and. It could have unintended consequences.
That's fine, so we'll leave all of this as is for now, get some comments from ACCD tomorrow. About this and go from there.
It's also a policy. change.
Yeah,
It could potentially be a great policy.
so like he may be in favor of changes and we may not want. Yes, go ahead.
If I may add, I appreciate you have Commissioner Farrell come in. We have worked with them on this language and I'm sure he will express that support when he is able to come and talk with you. One of the reasons why we're proposing deleting the, a portion of which is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places is, that is a potential stumbling block to designating some of our centers that make sense as centers. For example, Market Street in South Burlington. For example, the village of Killington at the base of the mountain road where they have really worked to build their new center. And so it is for those reasons why we are proposing deleting it here in the overall definition. I will note, when you get to the designation program itself, centers have steps of eligibility. And already in statute, because this is a bit of a conflict, to reach step 2, you have to have a portion eligible for listing on the National Register. So this change will just mean that a small class of centers would be able to be designated as centers and get certain benefits. But to get to step 2, you would still need a portion being eligible for the designation, which is already in statute.
Okay,
So it's a bit of a conflict that exists now,
yeah,
and so we're just trying to clean that up.
okay, that makes sense.
So so you're saying that this would open up eligibility only to the level 1 benefits.
Only to level.
Only to the what now?
Level 1,
Levels.
yes. Step 1, yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
That's tier.
And they go opposite in numeric numbers as you pointed.
Okay,
Yeah, so and I'm sure Commissioner Grill will speak to that, but before you had too much space from that conversation, I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
okay. Just really quickly, this next section. I don't have thought about line 32. Anyone have thoughts on line 32? This is still in the chapter on community investment program, maybe we just leave it.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna leave it.
We're gonna leave.
Oh, not, because we're not doing the changes, we're gonna hear from Alex tomorrow, so that in my mind includes. Line 32, I think.
I would mention very small. The reinstating the smart growth area, which is on the last part, we decided to do that, right?
I think, yeah, So that's easy.
So I'm considering putting it in chapter 39 unless you think it should go in 117.
I think wherever you want to put it, as long as we can reference it from this one is the most important part and that it doesn't go away after 2034.
And yep, and then on page 7, there's a block of language that's deleted. Because it might be duplicative, again, if you could check to see if you think it is duplicative.
No.
If it is, great, let's take it out. I think that it.
You see it, thanks again.
If you think well. I realize there's some pieces about steps here which seem like they are just clarifications and alignments. If that's true, if it's just clarifications and alignments, great. Okay, I think that actually brings us to the end of it. Actually, there is one other thing I do want to note, sorry, about smart growth areas. I just want to flag I is a new idea that was not in the smart growth principles as they used to exist. And I'm okay with including it for now, but flagging it for discussion. Okay. Okay. Thank you. We're gonna move on. Thank you, Ellen. So grateful. Thank you, everybody who was here for this discussion. I need like 30 seconds to transition my brain. We're gonna switch to 224. Thank you.
Oh, nice.
So, everyone loves it. It's amazing. Yeah, okay.
Nice to see you too.
We've almost made it. I may start with, Mike Brady, I can just get the very quick, unless you have a time crunch.
I've done new stuff.
Okay.
But
Well, actually, maybe it makes sense to start.
There
Okay, we did not actually take a break, so we're still going, we now have a new draft of 224, and because the secretary has a time commitment, we're gonna start with you. Yes, no, you have concerns, take it away.
Sure, for the record, Julie Wine, Secretary of Natural Resources. As some of you may have seen, I did send a letter this morning outlining a set of concerns around the wake boats portion of S-224. And some, what I see as some conflicts, the work being done in that bill presents with the draft rules that we are moving forward. I've tried to identify and summarize those areas of conflicts, but I would say the long story short is I've asked the team to pause their work on the rulemaking while we sort this out. I am concerned we're gonna end up at the other end of the legislative session with statute, changes to the underlying statute that require us to make changes to the rules. So just to sort of take them in the order they're presented in my letter. The first is, this bill talks about wake boats, and our rules really focused on wake sports. This is a recognition that wake boats can be operated as a traditional motorboat. And so it does feel like an important distinction, and in many ways substantially changes the regulatory construct if we're talking about wake boats versus when wake boats are operated in wake sports mode. The next potential challenge or inconsistency we see is around the home lake registration and single lake use restriction. Our draft rules really are focused on that hot water flush requirement, and in order to achieve AIS, aquatic invasive or nuisance species decontamination. The approach we have in there was developed through stakeholder engagement and a reflection of the resources available to us to actually do this work. The idea of the home lake provisions that come with the vessel registration and then the oversight of that creates the potential for a significant workload or frankly an unenforceable rule. and it obviously would supplant the regulatory approach that's currently reflected in our draft rule. And just flagging, we also don't have the resources to do what's envisioned in S 224. The next piece that we've identified is around decontamination standards and service providers. The idea being that we would register or have approval of decontamination service providers starting as soon as the summer. We don't have a program to do that. And so the idea that could be in place in time for the 2026 voting season is simply not possible. And instead, our rules set for performance-based criteria. So we would hold decontamination stations accountable to meeting those criteria, but not necessarily an approval process for decontamination service providers. The next piece is one that I just, I'm sort of looking to the future. The way we have developed our draft rules is we have established a set of criteria where wake sports can take place based on the number of contiguous acres, the minimum depth, the distance from shore. The S 224 section 2 sort of turns that around and asks or would direct the department to make a lake by lake list of water bodies that are wake sports eligible. We have over the last several years seen dozens of petitions in this space. Both the initial petition that caused us to go through the rulemaking and subsequent petitions that have been filed by individual lake watershed organizations. I believe this would result in an equivalent, if not even larger number of petitions coming to the agency. These are incredibly resource intensive for us to work through these petitions. And this is a different framework than is being presented in our draft rules. So again, would require us to overhaul what we've done there. The last two are probably the ones that are most easily addressed. One is there is some conflict created between S 224, potentially other parts of statute regarding enforcement jurisdiction and penalty structures, and just getting clarity around what is intended there and making sure there's one set of rules that apply feels really important. And then there are several definitions. The first one, aquatic nuisance inspection station. In our rules, the word species is there, I believe, but washing unit and decontamination service provider are either inconsistent with the draft rules we have, confusing, or inconsistent with what we've heard from folks engaged in on the ground operations. I do also have some feedback on the access area and fishing tournament language if you are inclined to hear that as well, but also happy to pause here and answer questions you may have about the concerns around wake sports.
So you're in the process of making new rules. The existing rules have only been in place for less than a year, or about a year.
Little over.
So do you have any scientific data that says the original rules didn't work, that they are causing soil erosion on the shoreline? So, and what's the process? Maybe my ignorance, but when LFCAR makes the rule, they say that meets the legislative intent. And all of a sudden, because petitions have come in, you've started rulemaking again. Don't you have to go back to the legislature for that?
Maybe starting with the last point first. The existing statutory construct is when we receive a petition under the use of public waters rules, we are required to take it up. So it doesn't require legislative approval. We have to consider it. We received, I think, in total 12 or maybe a couple more than that petitions from individual lake associations following the original statewide rules. Those in many ways are different, right? We took statewide action and then these were lake specific concerns that were being raised. We carefully reviewed all of the petitions and the supporting materials they provided and made two decisions based on our review.
First was that we continue to believe that wake sports are best regulated at a statewide level as opposed to any lake by lake changes. And then second was there was some additional information provided about sort of the operations of wake boats that caused us to look at changing those criteria. We also proposed to eliminate the home lake rule in our rules in order to, just in a reflection of the fact that we couldn't come up with a reasonable way to implement that program that would create the right level of accountability. It would sort of be a rule that was unsupported by our ability to ensure compliance. And then the last piece in the rules that are currently in draft would give the secretary discretion to put in place a time limited restriction on wake boat usage. That was a concern raised to us specifically by folks adjacent to Lake Carmi and Lake Moray, both of whom have recently gone through an alum treatment. And asked if there was sort of an accommodation that could be provided in the first year or two following an alum treatment to make sure that that sort of settles into place. And so the rules would also provide that flexibility for us to say, this is a time limited restriction based on some action that has been taken within the lake.
I can see those last two lakes and doing it there, but if we've already got rules in place, people got wake boats. And they can be operated, and a lot of them haven't left the body of water there. And they can be operated out of wake mode. So.
Right, and that is that concern about wake boats as is described in S-224 versus wake sports, which is really what our rules focus on.
So why did you change from wake boats to wake sports?
We continue to regulate wake sports. Wake sports mode, that when those boats are operating, wake sports.
I do have a question about one of so number 3 on your list about decontamination standards. You mentioned here that the bill would require the agency to initiate approval of decontamination services. I just want to clarify because I want to make sure that we have the same understanding of what the bill would do, which is that starting in July, the intention anyway is that it would develop, that A&R would develop a process to approve decontamination stations. They wouldn't have to be approving decontamination stations by July, which is why we had offset the requirements for decontamination until I think it was like July or January 1st of next year, so that there'd be 6 months to develop a process for approval. Does that make sense?
It does. It
Okay.
may just be me reading.
Okay, right, so
Quickly.
I just wanted to make sure that we had the same understanding of that, because we would not expect you to be approving decontamination stations starting in July.
And I just reserve the right to go back and check with the team that's sort of steeped in this and
Yep.
provide additional feedback.
Yep. That's
They appreciate.
Yep.
May have missed some.
No worries, and then I don't think I have any other. Well, I feel like I'm understanding the comment about definitions, I'm understanding the comment about enforcement, wake sports. One part that I can you explain a little bit further? Well, I think I understand what you're saying in 3. Because your rules are changing lakes that can have wake sports on them. And somehow our reference to shall operate only on lakes authorized by the department.
Correct. Would cause us
That's
to
a
be,
conflict.
yes.
I'm not sure I understand how
Have-
it's a conflict.
I may need to have our legal team help answer that question, but I think it is us proactively certifying the lake as opposed to establishing a criteria and then simply listing the lakes that meet the criteria.
So one possibility is maybe we just reference whatever process you all have, because I don't think the intent is to try to create a new list. We're just trying to. And so if the phrasing is problematic, I think there's a way around that potentially. In whatever criteria you all put together. then sure, okay, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, it would be the directive to establish criteria in our rules
Mhm.
to ensure, wake boats operating in wake sports mode
Mhm.
are being done so on suitable waterways. Right.
And then
No, go ahead.
well, the last part is about the whole like registration. I'm not sure that I have a question about that yet. I think I'm still like just percolating with that.
The process.
But yeah, but so Senator Hurdy.
That was actually, my question was about the enforcement concerns. Cause, I think we were trying to come up with something that was enforceable through the registration of the boat with DMV. Like boats have to register already, they would have to pick their home lake and register it at that point. And so I'm assuming there's some kind of process, just like with cars that have a boat, so I don't know, but that, you know, you could have Fish and Wildlife or somebody or Coast Guard or whoever's monitoring boats would just ask to see the registration of the boat if they wanted to make sure they were on the correct home lake. Or if they moved, that they've decontaminated.
So. Yes, and that would be a terribly incomplete system. I don't know that anyone is pulling boats over to check their registration specifically.
Right,
Our enforcement is really around safe operations. And then to the extent folks are engaged in fishing, to make sure that they have valid license.
right.
And so this is creating a new category of violation, a new workload, and something that I think the experience of my team and others that have gone out and watched wake boats being operated in wake sports and non-wake sports mode over the last couple of summers is that on eyesight, it is almost impossible to distinguish a wake boat from a non-wake boat unless it's being operated in wake sports mode. And so just as I say, our ability to effectively to have that be a compliance check. Seems real.
That's totally fair. I mean, I'm just wondering, kind of, you know, enforcement of any of these types of things sort of happen in conjunction with somebody else, something else happening, so if they're the Fish and Wildlife game warden is checking somebody's fishing license, would they also ask for their boat registration potentially?
They may, I don't know that, I suspect they do, just
Yeah,
if you were pulled over for
exactly.
some sort of violation, speeding, they might ask to see
Right,
it.
so that's what I was thinking, is that the enforcement would be in conjunction with other types of enforcement, but I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out how to make this work, and I do also. The distinction between wake boats and wake sports, I think is a fair one, because we did get testimony from wake boat owner operators that, you know, they can use their boat in non-wake sports mode, and it's just like a regular motorboat. So that seems like something we could talk about, but is it? I guess similar to Center Lines, like, or science, sorry.
Fine.
Funny. Center Lines, whatever this one's name is, the, like, how to make, is it possible at this point to make the bill compatible with the rulemaking that you're doing, so that you don't have to stop and your process, because you're pretty far down the path with it.
We are pretty far down the path of it. Yes, I think it is, it's just this tension that occurs when there's work being done on the underlying statute at the same time we're attempting to adopt rules.
Yes. And I think that when we were getting testimony from your people, maybe that wasn't made clear by both parties. Exactly, yeah.
Last minute, come again, after we've been working this for 2 months with nothing, saying this is an issue, and now 2 days before the crossover, what's going on?
To be frank, this is when it came to my level. I think the staff were managing at their level, they were working through it, they were providing testimony. And as it was raised to me, both in DEC and I'll share some concerns on the Fish and Wildlife side too. Said, wait a second, why are we continuing to work on rules if the underlying statute is being changed? We're constantly receiving pressure for folks to try to complete our rulemaking in advance of the coming voting season. I think.
Just fine, but. But if I said. Not heard this, in 11.5 hours. I'm just saying.
I have a question, everybody else in the room knows the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask it. Is there a prohibition in Vermont on a boat that is not a wake boat, a vessel not a wake boat, participating in wake sports?
I don't think a non-wake boat has the ballast capacity to generate the wake for wake sports. I can't say that with certainty, I'm not a motorboat expert, but
Yeah.
the ballast tanks are very
I
critical.
mean, I've seen boats where they put 6 people in the back and they drive around in, 11 miles, 11 knots or whatever, and they put a wakeboard out there, and it's not a wake boat, but it probably doesn't create the wave that a wake boat does necessarily, but people do it. So,
Yeah,
so it's not prohibited excursion, no.
so, I mean, what I hear in your question is like, if we change it to wake sports, is it somehow more prohibitive?
Yeah, that's sort of just kind of the question I'm kind of mulling over.
Yeah,
Or more, to put it another way, more effective.
oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'd have to think about it, but
Yeah. We've got only a little bit of time left, would like to hear I realize this is not in this letter that was provided, but if you have concerns about the,
Yes.
fishing tournament portion.
Sure, so on behalf of the Fish and Wildlife Department, in section 11 of the bill. Sort of understanding and appreciating what I believe is the intent to ensure that aquatic nuisance inspection stations would need to be permitted. Having them listed under an authorized activity seems to in section 4.
Oh, you're not talking about the fishing tournaments, you're talking about.
Well, yes,
Okay.
sorry,
Okay.
starting in section 11.
This is page 21.
You on draft 9.1?
I'm on draft 9.1, page 21, heading 4.5.
Okay.
Earlier in section 11, it does indicate, or maybe it was in section 10, that the stations would need to be permitted by the commissioner, but then they're listed as an authorized use. It does say approved, but the word permitted, I think, would make us feel more confident that everyone understands that we have discretion in terms of reviewing and allowing these stations to be placed at fishing access areas. In section 12, the ask. Yep. Starting at the very bottom of page 24, the ask that there be notice provided by the tournament organizer or by the department to the municipality or municipalities in which the tournament is proposed. We can commit to posting this information on our website. But the commitment to distribute by the applicant is potentially cumbersome. And they may not have that information necessarily readily available. You can imagine certain lakes touch multiple municipalities, multiple tournaments, but our hope would be that making that information publicly available would satisfy the needs, and that is relatively straightforward for us to be able to tend to, because the tournaments do register with us. And then finally, just on page 27 of 28, the language surrounding requiring the commissioner to require the applicant to reimburse the municipality for costs to ensure the drinking water source is not contaminated. our legal review suggests that creates a wide open liability, and it is nothing we can support.
Um. Question regarding. Is it because it's the commissioner that is required to? The commissioner is required to basically go to the applicant to, recoup costs, if it was just that the applicant is required to pay the municipality and
I
leave the
think it's
commissioner out of it.
ensuring the source is not contaminated is
Mhm.
very broad,
Mhm.
right? There's no de minimis anything in there,
Mhm.
in terms of what contamination involves, right? You know, it's extreme, one cigarette butt thrown overboard could be considered contamination,
Mhm.
or a piece of air and trash.
Mhm.
And so it's just, as I say, it does create a wide open liability if it's around gasoline powered motor, like it more specifics in there
Mhm.
might help, but as drafted, it would be impossible for us to support.
Too broad. Okay. Okay, that is helpful. Question, well, and actually, to be fair, I want to recognize that we are over time right now, and you gotta go. We're gonna talk more about this tomorrow, we do have a new draft. But I'd also like to hear from Mr. Carpenter on this, so we'll schedule some more testimonies tomorrow to revisit this draft and all the things that you brought up, so thank you.
Well,
Okay,
apologies.
it's okay. Okay, so with that.